what was it that first got you into hololive?
Matsuri's Band-Aids.
All right. I don't.
If you find whenever that stream is, that will date however long ago that was.
Can I give the context for that on this video without getting flagged? I don't know. Hello Life players, welcome to the channel. My name is Camelanch, and today we've got something really exciting cooked up. I haven't done something like this on the channel before, so if you're into interviews and learning more about what the competitive scene of the hololive OCG is like, please be sure to like the video and consider subscribing and ringing that bell so you don't miss any future uploads. But with that said, let's get to the topic at hand. Today I am joined by a Washington State local player that I've had the pleasure of interacting with and playing with several times. Currently the shining light of Washington. This past weekend at the Pasadena, California Bloom Cup DX tournament, he went 5-0, undefeated at this tournament, being one of the top players to come out of the event. And I'm super excited to have him here on the channel to talk about what his experience was like and how he prepared for the tournament. So without further ado, let me pass it to you to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Varler. I am a hololive OCG player, a huge fan of hololive since the very beginning, and happy to be here on the channel being interviewed.
Do you have any particular hololive Oshis that you want to shout out?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe. Yes.
I wonder who it could be.
I particularly love Suisei. Ever since she released her first album, I loved her music. I love her story. I love pretty much everything about her. I've been to her concerts, 2 of them now. So she is my Kamiyoshi by far.
That is lovely. Yeah, I mean, Suisei, one of the realest to ever do it. Super cool. Yeah. I believe she also was like on, what was the magazine? Oh, like Forbes 30 Under 30. She was like the first VTuber and only VTuber to be represented.
Should I pull that out of my closet? I have it.
You have it? Yes, please. Please show it.
Sure, 1 second.
Yes.
Yeah, so this beautiful magazine, Forbes 30 Under 30. My girl's on the cover.
Incredible.
It's amazing. Not only that one, but there's this other magazine I found that also has her on the cover. So naturally, I had to get it.
How did you find the other one?
I just kind of tripped on it. It was at a Kinokuniya in Seattle, and I was just like, okay, I guess I'm buying this now.
That kicks ass. All right, well, since we're on Suisei, I have to do my flex, which is, you know. Sorry.
See, I'm very jealous. I don't have one.
Well, moving on from Suisei, it's very clear that you are dedicated to the cause, so much respect. We know that you've been a hololive fan since the beginning. Obviously, you are accomplished in the hololive card game. Have you competed in other card games in the past?
Surprisingly, no. I think the last time I played a card game was in elementary school. I, of course, had like a deck for Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon and played card games in the playground before they banned them. But no, I hadn't really touched card games since my childhood. So yeah, I think 20-something years of no touching rectangles.
I feel like that's pretty interesting because a lot of people that maybe find success early on in new games have had prior experience, you know, whether it's coming from Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic or Pokemon, whatever it may be. You kind of have that repertoire to tap into. Even if mechanically the games are different, there's usually some similarities that go across multiple card games of this kind of battle format, and then of course just mindset, like going into a tournament and knowing how to play against like different types of players and decks. So it's really cool to hear that even though you didn't necessarily go to a ton of events prior, that you've been enjoying the hololive card game. And I think that also speaks to new players who may be interested in this sort of thing and feel intimidated. I feel like this is a great game to get into.
Certainly. Yeah, I was brand new to the community, like the card game community in general, in July when hololive OCG released in English. And I figured, you know what? I love the girls. Let's buy their cards.
I think we had a lot of similar experiences like that.
Yeah, like 1 month after that, I was like, well, I guess I'm invested now, and started joining local card shops, playing in locals and stuff. Very quick ramp up to high involvement, and very happy to be part of the community.
Yeah, that's awesome. For anyone who's interested in getting more into your local scene or finding events like this, highly recommend downloading the Bushi Navi app. That's where all the official tournaments are cataloged, so you can see what's coming up. There's also a lot of cool events where you can win promo prizes and things like that. So even if you're not like totally sweaty and trying to win all the time, there's a lot of things that have participation events, and you can just hang out and meet other people with similar interests. So I definitely recommend it to anyone who is even just casually kind of curious about what the game is like. Besides the casual side, we are here to talk about what it is like to experience the game at a high level and to travel to an event. So first of all, I talked about how we're both based in Washington. You traveled to California just to compete in this event. Is that correct?
Yeah, I flew down for the night prior, and then did the event and flew back the night after. It was really quick.
Yeah. How was your experience overall? Like, without getting too in the details, like, how was the venue? Like, interacting with other players? Like, did you have an overall positive time?
Definitely. Yeah, I think it was probably one of my favorite short travel trips ever. Going down there was very easy, very nice. Everyone there was trying very hard, but very friendly and respectful. And everyone loves hololive, so it's really easy to make friends there because everyone has this baseline similarity. Everyone's there for the same reason. So I absolutely loved the event.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that, going to just our locals even. They found out that I loved fauna, and someone was like, oh, here, just take this. And they gave me, a fauna pin. I was like, okay, you sure? You're just going to give this to me? I feel like we're all really kind about sharing stuff with each other and just kind of supporting people and who their faves are. Did you travel with anyone that you already knew?
Nope. I went down there alone and happened to bump into someone from Seattle, someone from San Francisco, maybe two or three people from San Francisco that I had met prior at a random different Bloom DX I traveled down for.
Nice.
As you can tell, I kind of farmed the Bloom DXs. I really wanted that invite, and made some friends in San Francisco and bumped into them again in Los Angeles. So that was really awesome.
Speaking of San Francisco, there is another Bloom Cup DX event coming up pretty soon, December 21st. So for anyone who is maybe looking to go to their first Bloom Cup DX, that is currently waitlist only. But what I saw, the cap is pretty low. And for those who don't know, the Pasadena event actually capped around 100 or so players. And then due to high interest, they reopened it, and I think they ended up having roughly 200 players. Do you remember the exact player count?
I think it was right around 200. Yeah,
wow.
If I remember correctly, it capped off kind of low at 64, and then they raised it to 96, and then 128, and then 250. So every time they raised it, it blew my mind. I thought I'd never get in. I was waitlist 100 or something.
Oh, man.
So I'm super glad they upped the capacity and allowed more people to play because it made the event a lot bigger and a lot more impressive.
It's crazy how much interest there is too at this point in the scene because it hasn't been out terribly long in English. We've only had the game for it's not even a year yet, maybe 6 or so months maybe. And I feel like they probably didn't anticipate, given their low entry caps, they probably weren't anticipating this level of engagement from folks. So seeing it jump from a 64 cap to 200 is honestly nuts, and I think is pretty indicative of hopefully a healthy future for the game. It seems like there's a lot of investment from not just the organization, but the community at large going out and traveling for these. So definitely something to keep your eyes open for if you're either in the area or looking to travel. There's definitely more across the states, so it's not just limited to West Coast, even though that's what we're primarily talking about. But going into this event, especially having to compete against, well, not directly against 200 players, but being in a competition of 200 players, how did you prepare for this tournament? What was your mindset and your game plan going into this?
Yeah, I went into it obviously hoping to do the best I can, but really all I was trying to do is play the best that I possibly can and see what happens. I was not anticipating to do nearly as well as I did.
That's just a plus, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's definitely just a plus. But I practiced a lot with my deck in preparation for this tournament. I played at many locals in Seattle and Richmond in order to make sure my deck was up to snuff, my skills are up to snuff. I'm still learning a lot about this game even to this day. So went into it being extremely practiced and knowing my deck very well. But then just being there to play the game and have fun really helped me not stress out over every single play and just play good instead of play perfect.
Yeah, no, that's totally valid. I think it's super stressful when you're in the moment being over analytical of every little decision that you're making. And sometimes, like, you just got to play the game. You got 35 minutes for a round. Was that the case at the Bloom Cup? It was 35 minutes per round?
Yep, 35 minutes per round, and if you go past 35, it's like a tiny grace period, then double loss. But I think fortunately, most of the games resolved without double losses. I didn't talk to anybody who had to take a double loss. Maybe there was one or two that I just wasn't aware of, but overall, I think everyone did a great job of playing at a rate that didn't force a double loss, and everyone had good games, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive for that many players to not go overtime. I feel like this game is pretty well designed in that sense, where obviously you have to maintain a certain level of speed when you're playing, but I don't think it's insanely fast. Like, you can definitely take, some time on certain turns to really think through your next steps, but having not competed at that large of a tournament, but just being at many locals, I personally never have gone into any time concerns, and I feel like with card games, that's usually my first concern is a match going to be like 45 minutes?
Yeah.
But that doesn't really happen so much right now in this meta, at least, so that's pretty nice to hear. And I saw that you were playing the Shion deck.
I was.
And I also found it interesting that out of the meta share for that tournament, only 7% of players were using the Shion Oshi. I wanted to hear your thought process of what made you decide to play Shion, and given the result of this tournament, your performance as Shion, do you think there may be a surge of interest going into that character, or do you think it was a very precise pick? I'd love to hear how you came to that decision.
Maybe slightly disappointing, but there wasn't really any deep reason behind picking Shion. I went into set 2 knowing Reine is the meta. Reine is very strong in set 2. And of course there are alternatives. You can build Reine multiple ways. There's also Marine, there's also Suisei, there's also the remnants of Promise.
Yeah.
But I ran Ozki set 1. As you know, we both ran Ozki set 1.
Yes.
And I kind of loved the off-meta feel of not running Kanata and not running Promise in set 1. And I wanted to maintain that sort of feel of playing something offbeat, a little bit weird. Half to catch opponents by surprise, but also half because I want to be quirky and unique and fun. So no real deep reason. I just kind of committed to Shion because I felt like it was viable in the moment of set 2, right? Where you're facing a bunch of green and unlikely to be viable in the future until they released that Chloe card just now in JP.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. But yeah, it was kind of a spur-of-the-moment decision that turned into an obsession. Is there strength in Shion, perhaps, that was undiscovered? And I think my answer to that is actually, no, not really. The Shion deck is very strong against Reine, and I think that matchup is advantaged. Shion wins more often than not. But versus any other deck archetype, it's disadvantaged, especially versus decks that don't put cheers on the center, like Suisei, who deals most of her damage from the collab spot. Or Polka, who she only needs one cheer on her buzz, and then the other is the fan, and she can swing for crazy damage. Shion can't do anything about that. So all of that stuff considered, it's honestly not a great deck in the grand scheme of things, but it happened to be a really suitable pick for high-level tournament play in the current moment, because everyone's running Reine. Or most people are running Reine. I think around half or above are running a Reine variant. And in this kind of scenario, if you can tank out the first couple of matches that are not Reine, you get pretty much guaranteed paired into a Reine for the later matches, and that's what I was banking on.
Looking at the meta share, they only show it by Oshi, not by breakout archetypes and stuff, but Kobo was 24% of the meta share, being the most represented Oshi at this event, and presumably safe to say that was likely the Reine deck with the Kobo Oshi.
What was Ollie?
Ollie was tied with Suisei as the second most represented Oshi, both at 15%.
Gotcha. I'd bet a fair amount of those Ollies were the Reine Eofi variant.
Yeah, that'll do it. So clearly a lot of Reine. And I wanted to know, I have some other thoughts around just some of the stuff that you said too, but first, since we're on the topic, what was the matchup spread for you? Did you end up personally running into a lot of Reine decks which ended up being favorable for the deck that you chose? Like, did you run into anything that caught you off guard or maybe kind of put you in a tight spot? I'm really curious what the overall dynamic was like for you.
Yeah, I think overall I got very lucky in terms of my matchups. Had I been paired into a Suisei or a Marine or a Polka, I probably would have lost instantly. But I got kind of lucky. So I had 5 matches. The first one was versus Promise with Crony. The second one was a Mirror versus Shion, surprisingly.
Oh, wow.
And the remaining 3 were Reine variants.
There you go, nice. What were the, for the 3 Reines, did you get like different unique versions of Reine for all 3?
It would have been cool if I got one of each, because there's Reine Zeta, Reine Iofi, Reine Marine are like the 3 that come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
I got 1 Reine Zeta and then 2 Reine Marines.
Okay, interesting. That makes, I mean, Reine Marine makes sense. I think that's probably the most selected deck going into these kind of events. The other variants of Reine, I think, are all really strong. It's kind of almost comes down, I would say, probably to maybe playstyle preference, or even if you know what the competitive scene is like, you may want to play a different version of Reine to go into certain matchups.
Yeah.
I'd really love to hear how your Reine Marine matches went, because as you mentioned, like basically destroys Shion.
Yeah.
It's a really bad matchup for her. Fortunately, this isn't a mono Marine deck, so in that sense, you could probably navigate a bit more. But what was your strategy, and what were the things you were trying to do to get around that potential Marine threat with your deck?
Yeah, in short, enemy, or Tiki, or boss, however you want to call it.
Uh-huh.
It brings up stuff from the back to the center, and then I can kill it. So often my strategy in a match is to identify the threat, bring it up, get rid of it early, and then let them languish with only W's or like a thing that doesn't have any cheers. So I was able to do that in my other matches, but wasn't able to do that in the Reine Marine matches. In short, the reason why I won one of them is because my opponent just did not draw the Marine first. I got a little bit lucky in that regard, in that they were basically just playing Reine, mono Reine, into Shion, which was very advantaged for Shion, obviously. Mm-hmm. And the last match, they were able to find Marine, but I just think that the timing of my draws was very fortunate, and I was able to boss up at the right time. I drew extremely well and found the correct firsts and seconds at the right time and just had enough damage to take life. Overall, I'd say I think luck actually had more to do with it than skill.
Listen, when it comes to card games, luck is a skill.
This is fair.
You heard it here first, folks. Just be luckier.
Just
you
be
just
lucky.
Get lucky.
Just draw better, be lucky.
I think that does raise something, though, about deck building, right? Is obviously luck is involved, RNG is always a factor, but you're structuring your decks in a way to try to get your ideal hand as consistently as possible and try to set up your win condition as consistently as possible. So for your deck, what were some of the decisions that went into getting this deck list that you landed on so that you felt confident that you would be able to consistently execute on what you needed to do and potentially kind of, manipulate luck, so to speak, in your favor?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a huge part of card games, as I'm learning, is being lucky is how you win, but manipulating luck is a skill. And so getting luck to play out in your favor is essential. I went through 4 or 5 versions of this deck before I settled on what I finally played at Bloom DX. And I would say the critical thing was being able to find enemy. Mm-hmm. Because if my opponent knows what they're doing, they're not going to put any cheers in the center or try to keep that to a minimum, and then Shion doesn't deal any damage. But if I have enemy, then I can take whatever they're building in the back, bring it up, and then be extremely disruptive and win. I carry 3 enemies is what I found is the sweet spot. I found 2, sometimes I didn't find it, 4, sometimes I brick. So 3 was a very happy amount. And then as for how to find it, I tried running the Shion spot, which can roll and find it, among other things. I tried using just sub PC because that's less of a liability, and found sub PC worked the best. So that was probably the most critical strategy element, is just having the enemy on hand at all times to opportunistically play it and be extremely disruptive. The other thing was just optimizing the debut and draw counts and just making sure that I didn't have too many debuts, but also not too few, and then fail my first draws.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I noticed that you have 2 sub PC in addition to the 3 enemy, and I think that is an interesting choice because a lot of decks that run enemy, I feel like generally only run 1 or 2, and I think it makes sense for how you're playing this deck and the matchups that you're going into. Especially, you know, one of the things with Rene Marine, right, is Rene's putting in a lot of work, but Marine is kind of menacingly sitting on the bench ready to come in. So if you're able to eliminate some of those threats earlier by bringing them up, it's a very valid strategy, and it can also make people more reluctant to baton pass and things like that.
Yep.
I think that's an interesting approach. And I also had one really big question that we were talking about a bit as a community in the Discord, which is, how did you decide on one debut Chloe? How did you reach that decision?
I was playing the typical ratio of 2W4 first, as you might typically run in any other ramp deck. You run 2 because you sometimes need the backup, sometimes it dies, sometimes it goes to holo power, sometimes you can't find it. And I thought, I was looking at my deck list, and I was really trying to squeeze out like the maximum amount of reliability. And I had games occasionally where I would draw the second debut Chloe and just be disappointed. But when deck building, I feel like it's really important to listen to those feelings. Like, why am I disappointed right now? It's because this card is offering me no value in the moment. And so then as you play the deck more and more, you realize, maybe I should replace this. So I thought about it. What if I only had one debut Chloe? I can find it with normal PC. I have 4 of them. I can find it with Mikorone. I also have 4 of them. So I have a pretty high chance of finding the card in a game. I just have to make sure it doesn't go to holo power and it doesn't die.
Yeah, the 4 normal PC, 4 Mikorone definitely is a huge help to get the debut that you need out. The card that I was curious about related to that was the retro PC. I think you have 1 copy in that build.
I do.
How often did that come in handy for you? Like, was it pretty clutch was it there when you needed it? How did that factor into kind of recycling maybe certain debuts that you needed and things like that?
Yeah, I carry 1 retro and one retro, 1 custom. And that's just to make it so that I have a 5 out of 50 chance of finding the second Shion and the really important searching first Shion in the deck, as opposed to 4 out of 50. That was another effort to try to make the deck more reliable. One of the struggles, of course, is finding the second. So if you can't find it, you don't win.
Yes, that was something that I discovered playing Mono Marine, is that the first blue Marine is basically the backbone of the whole deck because it lets you search for any other Marine. And either herself for the first bloom, you can get another one of those. You can only use the effect once per turn, but it sets you up for your next turn. Or getting the second bloom Marine. And without custom PC, I was just like, man, like sometimes I'm just not finding this damn first bloom Marine.
Right.
Where is she? And I was looking at other deck lists, and not a lot of them were running custom PC, and if they did, they only maybe had 1 copy. And I said to myself, like, I have 4 normal PC, 4 Mikorone. I'm not really having issues getting debuts, so I need something that will let me get those first blooms. And I ended up doing 2 custom PC and only 3 normal PC, and it felt so much better.
Yeah.
Especially when you're running these. Obviously, Chloe is a little different because she could be splashed into a lot of decks, but when you're running these decks that's like essentially a mono Shion deck, cards like custom PC I think are so valuable because you're going to have a lot of the, duplicates of the same Shions in your hand, and sometimes you're just like, where's that one specific version of Shion that I need right now?
Exactly.
And that's where custom PC comes in.
I did try running 2 at one point, but found that sometimes I ran into situations where I had both in hand and couldn't play one or couldn't play either, and realized the ratio works better if I just have 1. So I settled on 1. But absolutely, that card is instrumental in getting the ratio right.
I know you were saying your matchup spread, you felt relatively lucky, but what was the moment at that event where you were sweating the most? Like, was there any game where you're like, oh man, I might not win this one, and how did you turn it around?
That was the Rene Zeta matchup. That was my 3rd match. If I'm being completely honest, I slept on Rene Zeta. I practiced a lot versus Rene Marine and Rene Eofi, and assumed that I'd be able to handle Rene Zeta, which was a bad assumption. So I went into that match thinking, okay, great, it's Rene. I played not Rene the first two. I got through the hard part. It's easy sailing after this, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't. Secret, it wasn't. I did have green advantage, which was nice. But as any experienced player should know, I didn't. Rene Zeta protects a lot. And if you have both Zetas up, you can negate damage every turn if you collab. So that matchup was very difficult because Shion deals almost no damage. So there's almost never an incentive to even use the guaranteed protect from the hOCG. So that game was a challenge because I had to not only get them to burn their holo power, like deal enough damage for them to be worth it to burn their holo power, but then also after that, swing again for enough to take life. So I figured out that if I stacked enough cheers on the center Rene Zeta runs Rene center even against Shion, because Zeta must collab. So if I put way too many cheers on the Rene, she had like 6 or 7 by the end of the game, I could start one-shotting Zeta in the collab position and take 2 life per Zeta. So that's how I figured out the positioning, and then I started gunning for that as soon as I realized that's how you win. But I didn't realize that at the very beginning. I was just very confused for the first 2 or 3 turns, trying to figure out how to get this invincibility off.
It sounds like you found out just in time.
Yeah, the game ended at the very end with me attacking a Zeta with a one-shot. They didn't have enough holo power to guarantee the negation, so it literally came down to a coin flip.
Man.
If I won the coin flip, then I took the remaining 2 life. If I lost it, they swing and get me next turn. So very close match. That's probably one of my favorite matches of all time that I've ever had. It was very intense.
I saw that for the meta share, despite it being highly Koba Oshi, all the top 5 decks that went undefeated were unique. It wasn't repetitive of like everyone was playing Rene Marin. I want to get your thoughts on that. Did you feel like that was maybe indicative of how the meta is currently? Do you think it was just the players having the right decks at the right time? How do you feel about the kind of the overall state and balance of the game?
Proportionately, it's surprising. I would have expected at least 2 Renes, perhaps 3, in the top 5. And just looking at the decks that were played towards the end of the tournament, just the people around me, I'd say, about half or above were playing Rene. So it is very surprising to me to see 5 unique decks in set 2 meta. I was expecting a lot less diversity. But I'm really happy to see it, because that means, in my opinion, it's healthier for the game to see more options and more variety. Allows people to be creative and expressive with how they play and what decks they build. So very cool to see that kind of stuff.
Do you think part of it is just because it's hololive and people have their favorite hololive members that they want to play as?
That might be part of it.
Yeah.
I know a guy who runs Marine because he loves Marine. I know someone who, myself, also next set, who will be running Suisei because they love Suisei.
Yeah.
So I think there's a huge Oshi bias on why people are running certain holomems. But that said, like, maybe there are other people who are like me that just want to run something funny and not quite meta, but still highly viable in the current scene, that just happen to invest very strongly and pull off clutch wins.
Similarly, when we were both playing Pekora hOCG, our reasoning behind it was kind of off meta, but it played really well into some of the best decks at that time, because it wasn't weak to white. It was able to maintain its win condition with the Pekora Oshi, and it just didn't really particularly lose hard to any deck. And it was just kind of a defensive, tanky deck that, unless you really knew how to get around it, it can catch people off guard. And I think for players who maybe don't necessarily want to play the best deck or whatever, there's a lot of valid strategy to exploring cards that you like playing and figuring out how to adapt it into what you're likely going to be playing against. So finding the tech where, how can I deal with specifically Rene Marin? How can I deal with Shion, whatever it is that you're expecting to run into at your events? So that's another big part of the game, and I always try to take tier lists with a grain of salt, because tier lists are absolutely real. There are definitely the best decks and the worst decks, but I think there are a lot of those decks that kind of sit in that high mid tier that a lot of people don't pay attention to. Some of them are just sleeper decks that maybe aren't as consistent, but can absolutely win in the right conditions. I usually try to prefer to find that option, because otherwise you're going to be playing the same deck as 50% of people, and everyone's going to know that matchup. They're like, okay, Here we go. I got to do my anti-Rene Marine stuff. So I think while there is obviously the advantage of playing the best deck, you have to play so precise in those scenarios because everyone's basically knowing what you're going to do unless you're adding in something spicy that is maybe not a typical deck list. With that said, for those who aren't aware, looking at the top decks, so obviously we have Varler representing Shion, but we had a Kobo in the top 5, we had a Suisei, a Kanata, and a Marine. So if you were curious, that is what the spread looked like. I'll also be sharing a bunch of links to these deck lists, announcements, things like that in the video description. So if you want to learn more about this event and what cards were in each of these decks, you can find those in the description. I think the other important thing about this event that I wanted to talk to you about, because I'm sure it's exciting, is how excited are you to have gotten your invite to Japan?
I'm flabbergasted. I did not have any hope or any belief that I would win this thing. It was just kind of like a seed in the back of my mind that it could be a possibility, but I did not believe I'd get it. I'm absolutely stoked and very happy to get the invite to the Japan tournament, and I'm definitely gonna go.
Hell yeah.
Whatever set meta it is, then I'll practice that a lot, but I'm super happy about that.
In order to qualify for that event, is it just making, is there a point system, or do you just have to top one of the Bloom Cup DXs? How does it work to get your invite? Because I know it's different from game to game.
For hololive OCG, the qualifier tournaments, it depends on the size. So if you have a 32 cap or lower, then the first place is the only person who gets the invite. If you have greater than 32, then you just stop at playing at 5 rounds, and any undefeated player gets the invite. So, for example, at the Pasadena regional, there were 5 undefeated players, and each of them got an invite to Japan.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I don't think it's stressed enough how difficult it is to win 5 games in a row without a single loss. That is a huge feat to be able to not only play that consistently, but also to be able to maintain, the proper mindset and not, overthinking and all that. So when you were realizing that you were getting closer and closer to being undefeated, how did you manage some of the thoughts bouncing around in your head?
Gotcha. Well, sort of 2 things happened there. The first is funny in that I didn't know how the invite worked going into it. I thought it was first place only for all of them. So having got to 5-0, at that point, I was like, all right, I think I made top cut. I have another 3 matches to go. All right, let's prepare. And then there was an announcement that went out. Okay, here's your invite. Huh? So that's what went through my head. I actually was still locked in even through the final match, thinking I was only halfway done. So in that way, I kind of tricked myself into focusing better.
Maybe that's a strat. You just convince yourself that oh man, this is only the beginning.
In a way, it is, because I still have to play in Japan.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But funny enough, that just reminded me of before getting into hololive card game and other things like that, I was a Smash Brothers player, and one of my best tournament performances ever was when I just didn't look at the bracket. And at this event, it was stacked. Literally, people that were ranked top globally were at this event for some reason, because New York and New Jersey Smash scene is stupid, and it's just all the best players for some reason seem to congregate there. But I was at this event, and one of my friends was like, "Oh, dude, you made it a top 8." I'm like, "I'm in top 8." He's like, "Yeah, you're on winner's side." I'm like, "I'm in winner's side top 8." He's like you're guaranteed 5th place, and I'm like, well, what's going on? So I think just being focused on, just playing your best and trying not to think too much about, what the next match is going to be or whatever, and just being as in the moment as you can, I think it goes a long way.
Yeah, there was a second aspect to maintaining focus. I came from the world of OSU tournaments, actually. So that's where my previous tournament stuff comes from, rhythm games.
Nice.
So I do have a lot of background in mentally preparing myself for really high stakes stuff. And so the ways that I do that are silly, almost in a way. Sleep well, eat well, practice.
That's great
That's
advice.
about it. Really simple advice, but I make sure to do that before anything that I really care about.
It sounds silly, but is good advice. One of the things that I struggled with a lot when I was competing, I still do to an extent, but I've gotten way better about it as I've gotten older, but I used to not be able to eat at events because I was so stressed out and so nervous. And regardless of if I played well or not, like actually that event that I was just talking about, that was one where I ended up playing extremely well, like probably some of the best I've ever played, but when the tournament was over, I was miserable because I had the worst headache. I did not eat enough food, I did not drink enough water. And it's like it's you know, when you treat it like a sprint, it can have negative effects on you. So I think just taking care of yourself prior to the event, during the event, not forgetting to stay hydrated, to stay in good spirits and everything, it goes a long way. It really does. And I know you said that those are kind of your three big things, but do you have any other advice for players who maybe want to get started with the hololive card game? They're trying to compete locally, or maybe they do aspire to one day compete at one of these larger Bloom Cups. Is there anything you want to say to those players?
Yeah, I'd say go to locals and make friends. Having friends that can encourage you, give you hard matches, give you advice is instrumental in improving. I can't count the number of times that like I've played a match and somebody's just said, "Oh wait, what if you done this?" And I'm just like, "Oh, you're right." And then you retain that and learn it and then hold on to it for the next match. So you build those kind of moments, you build the trust of those around you, you build friendships, and those go a long way to helping you have fun with the game, because that's what the game's for, but also improve. So definitely hold on to connections, participate, be part of the community, and play the game.
That's great advice. So it just got to play. I think the community aspect of it, though, is really a great thing to note, because you need to have another person on the other side of the table to play with you. So finding people that you vibe with and have fun playing with is definitely a big part of the joy of playing the game. And I think what's also really cool about locals is, like you said, like I feel like, yes, like we go to locals, typically we still want to do well and we want to win, but I find it's just a little bit more relaxed. Yeah. Unless, you know, we're competing for, like, you know, Halloween promo Mori Clyde card, which someone in this conversation, not me, has won more than once. So with that said, but I also specifically remember playing against another Marine deck, and we were both playing mono Marine, like slightly different builds of it. And I had a pretty strong lead, and it was, on one of her turns, she was like, "I don't think I can do anything here. I think that's it." And I was like, "Do you happen to have this card in your hand?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I think if you play this and then this, that'll get you to you can actually knock out my center." And she was like, "Oh." And then, you know, she found the path, and she was able to like figure out the sequence from there, and she got that knockout. And ultimately, like, I still won the game, but it was more about like, I'm not just trying to like win. It's like, oh, we both are playing a similar deck, we both want to get better, and if I see there's an option that you might have, I want to see you play it through and do your best and try to find that route. Like, obviously I wouldn't coach someone at a Bloom Cup, but like, you know, at a local it's a little different, right? Like if someone's like, "Oh, this is my first event," or like, "Oh, I've only played this game like twice before." Like, I love trying to help people get confident about playing and not being afraid to, like, you know, ask questions or things like that. So
yeah, the first 2 or 3 games are always the scariest, because you're like, do
Yes.
I belong here? Do I know what I'm doing? I don't know what I'm doing. This is scary. Who are you? What am I? Who am I? But after like the first, you know, 5-10 games or so, it just starts to become secondhand, and I felt very welcome very quickly.
I'm glad to hear that. Do you plan on going to other Bloom Cups to continue, like, you know, trying to keep your competitive spirit up, or do you feel like you maybe will kind of like stay at a local level, and then once it gets closer to the bigger Japan event, then you'll kind of get back to grinding those matchups? I wanted to know like what your mentality was.
You know, I haven't decided yet, actually.
All right.
I love the grind of the competitive ones. That's where you get the most value out of your experiences, the hardest matches, the most intense matches, the most learnings. But traveling's expensive, man.
Yes, yep,
So
it is.
I might travel a little bit less now that I've guaranteed the invite, but still want to go to places like California and Richmond, and of course locally in Seattle, and play the games with everyone I've met so far.
Totally valid. for those of you who are trying to find more resources or ways to play and meet people, there is a unofficial hololive OCG fan Discord, which I think just recently hit like 7,000 or 8,000 people, which is awesome. So I'm going to put a link to that in the description as well. And there's definitely Discords that are broken out for other regions. So we have our Washington State Discord, which I'll also link to if you happen to be in our area. But there's a Canada Discord. So there's a bunch of communities out there. So hopefully we can give you enough resources to try to find where your space is. So I highly encourage it. And is there anything that you want to say to everyone watching that we haven't covered so far, either related to your Bloom Cup experience or the game or otherwise?
Happy birthday, Shion.
Hey!
It's her birthday today, December 8th.
Perfect. That's so funny. That's going to date this recording. Everyone's going to know.
Oh, yeah, how long it takes you to edit a video.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, which is probably, given how my week currently looks, is going to be at least like a few days. But very excited to get this one posted. I think people are really going to enjoy it. And if you are watching this now and you are enjoying it, please give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing to the channel and ringing the bell so you don't miss any future uploads. If you like this sort of stuff, I'd love to hear about it in the comments section. If you have any questions for Varler, leave them in the comments section. I'm sure he would love to come back at a later date and talk more and maybe answer some of your pressing questions. But sure. In the meantime, thank you again so much for your time and for hanging out. Is there anywhere where people can find you if they want to keep learning more about your adventures?
I'm on the hololive Discord that you mentioned earlier, as well as the Washington server, the Richmond server, and a couple of California servers. So you can probably hunt me down if you are in any of those hololive servers.
Well, fantastic. You heard it here. So those links will be in the description. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope that you learned something and maybe feel a little bit motivated to dive deeper into the game. We both really love the hololive and the hololive OCG. I think it's just a really thoughtful game with a lot of really kind players who just love virtual anime women. So if that's your jam, then it's probably going to be a good time for you. So if you want to learn more, always stay tuned to this channel. I try to post as much as I can about anything happening in the scene. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Hi, Cameron.